Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranjaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Jayamudirayat Srinvada Swagata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Hridyandasto Hyabadrani Vidunodi Sugatsadam Nashtaprayeshu Padreshu Nityam Bhagavada Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtati. Hare Krishna. Today I'm going to read Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, verses 23 to 25. Adayo Vedayastasya Sainika Yavanascharaha Udobhasrakasurayaha Prajvaro Dipitajvaraha Evam Bahuvidher Dukher Deva Bodhatma Sambhavaya Klishyamana Sadam Vasham Dehe Dehi Tamo Vrataha Pranendriya Manodharman Atmani Adyasya Nirgunaha Sede Kamalavandayan Mamaham Idi Karmakrit Adayaha disturbances of the mind, Vyadayaha disturbances of the body or diseases, Tasya of Yavaneshwara, Sainika soldiers, Yavanaha Yavanas, Charaha followers, Buddha of living entities, Upasarga at the time of distress, Asu very soon, Rayaha very powerful, Prajwaraha named Prajwara, Divvidaha two kinds, Jwara fever, Evam thus, Bahu Videha of different varieties, Dukkaiha by tribulations, Deva by providence, Buddha by other living entities, Atma by the body and mind, Sambhaveha produced, Klishyamanaya subjected to sufferings, Sadam 100, Varsham years, Dehe in the body, Dehi the living entity, Tamaha Brudaha covered by material existence, Prana of life, Indriya of the senses, Manaha of the mind, Dharman characteristics, Atmani unto the soul, Adyasya wrongly attributing, Nirgunaha although transcendental, Sede lies down, Kama of sense enjoyment, Lavan on fragments, Dhyayan meditating, Mama mind, Aham I, Idi thus, Karma Karmakrit the actor. Translation and purport by Sri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The followers of Yavaneshwara, Yamaraja, are called the soldiers of death, and they are known as the various types of disturbances that pertain to the body and mind. Prajwara represents the two types of fever, extreme heat and extreme cold, typhoid and pneumonia. The living entity lying down within the body is disturbed by many tribulations pertaining to providence, to other living entities, and to his own body and mind. Despite all kinds of tribulations, the living entity, subjected to the necessities of the body, mind, and senses, and suffering from various types of disease, is carried away by many plans to his lust to enjoy the world. Although transcendental to this material existence, the living entity, out of ignorance, accepts all these material miseries under the pretext of false egoism, I and mine. In this way, he lives for 100 years within this body. But what? In the Vedas, it is stated, Asangoyam Purushaha. The living entity is actually separate from material existence, for the soul is not material. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that the living entity is the superior energy and the material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and so on, are the inferior energy. The material elements are also described as bhina or separated energy. When the internal or superior energy comes in contact with the external energy, it is subjected to so many tribulations. In Bhagavad Gita 2.14, the Lord also says, Matra spashyastu kaudeya, shidoshna sukha dukkha. Because of the material body, the living entity is subjected to many tribulations brought about by air, water, fire, extreme heat, extreme cold, sunshine, excessive eating, unhealthy food, maladjustments of the three elements of the body, kapha, pitta, and vayu, and so on. The intestines, the throat, the brain, and other parts of the body are affected by all kinds of diseases that are so powerful that they become sources of extreme suffering for the living entity. The living entity, however, is different from all these material elements. The two types of fever described in this verse can be explained in contemporary language as pneumonia and typhoid. When there is an extreme fever in the body, there is typhoid and pneumonia, and they are described as prajwara. There are also other miseries created by other living entities. The state exacts taxes, and there are also many thieves, rogues, and cheaters. Miseries brought about by other living entities are called Adi Bhautika. There are also miseries in the form of famine, pestilence, scarcity, war, earthquakes, and so on. These are caused by the demigods or other sources beyond our control. Actually, there are many enemies of the living entities, and these are all described to point out how miserable this material existence is. Knowing the basic misery of material existence, one should be induced to get out of the material clutches and return home back to Godhead. Actually, the living entity is not at all happy in this material world. Because of the body, he suffers thirst and hunger and is influenced by minds, by words, by anger, by the belly, by the genitals, by the rectum, and so on. Manifold miseries encircle the transcendental living entity simply because he desires to satisfy his senses in this material world. If he simply withdraws from activities of sense gratification and applies his senses in the service of the Lord, all the problems of material existence will immediately diminish. And with the advancement of Krishna consciousness, he will be freed from all tribulation and after giving up the body will return home back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमदे भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. I would like to seek blessings from all the assembled devotees and thank you for giving me an opportunity to purify myself. Please forgive me for adding any for my shortcomings or adding my own interpretations while presenting this class. In this chapter, Narada Muni explains the allegorical story of King Puranjana to King Prajinaparagi. These particular verses describe the troubles of the living entity during its time in the material world. These verses describe the living entity or soul living in the city of the body for 100 years During this time, it is attacked by the Yavana soldiers, which represent the physical and mental disturbances that cause miseries. Another character mentioned in this verse is Prajwara. This character stands for the two types of fever, both hot and cold, which can be interpreted as physical illness like typhoid and pneumonia, as well as mental conflicts. In the translation, Prabhupada says that the soul is not material. The material energy is the inferior energy, and the living entity is the superior energy. When the superior energy comes in contact with the inferior energy, it goes through several troubles or tribulations in terms of his spiritual life, trouble to other living entities, his own body and mind. Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 14 says Matra sparshastu kaundeya shitoshna sukha dukkada agama payino nityas tikshasva bharada. The human body houses five senses: the sense of sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. When these senses comes in contact with the material world, it gives rise to sensations of happiness and distress. None of these sensations are permanent. They come and go, like the changing seasons or like waves in the ocean. It will touch us and go back to the ocean. Happiness and distress is like that. If we move, we can fall into the ocean. But if we stand still, the waves will go back. The seasons, hot weather in Arizona sometimes gives us distress. Rain gives us little pleasure, but if it is flooding, it will gives us distress too. Thus, both the perceptions of happiness and distress experienced through the senses are transitory. If we permit ourselves to be affected by them, we will sway like a pendulum from side to side. So we have to tolerate both the feelings of happiness and distress at the same way without being disturbed by them. In chapter 2, verse 38, Krishna says, Sukha dukhe samikritva lapa lapo jaya jayo tado yudhyaya yujasva naivam pavam avapiso. Krishna tells Arjuna to treat everything as the same: happiness and distress, loss and gain, victory and defeat. So what happens when the soul is going through these tribulations from air, water, fire, cold, heat, unhealthy food, overindulgence of food, or eating bad food? There is imbalance of kapha, pitta, and vayu. This is the philosophy from Ayurveda Prabhupada is mentioning here. Our body suffers from all kinds of diseases due to the imbalance of kapha, pitta, and vayu, and suffers in this material world. Living entity suffers from other miseries too, suffering those originating from the body and mind, which is called adhyatmika, those caused by other living beings, adibhaudika, and those from natural calamities like rain, flood, extreme heat, which is called Adi Devik. These are all shows that how much we are going through in our day-to-day life, living in this material world. Are we all happy? No, we are struggling to satisfy our senses. The verses explain why the transcendental soul suffers these miseries in the material world. So the Prabhupada says the root cause of the problem is the soul's ignorance and misusing the free will which Krishna granted us. Due to the false identification, the soul develops a false sense of ego, thinking I am the body and everything related to the body is mine. Thus, the soul suffers from the temporary pleasures and pains of the material world, even though it is transcendental to it. Despite all the tribulations, the living entity is driven by a strong desire to enjoy the world through its senses. This lust for material enjoyment keeps it entrapped in the cycle of birth and death. How can we get out of the clutches of Maya or from this material existence and return back to Godhead? Prabhupada says that withdraw the senses from sense gratification and use our senses in the service of the Lord, and all the material hankering will diminish. Like we heard the story of Maharaj Ambrish. He always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna, his words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engages his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temples and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavana. He engages senses of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engages sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of tulsi leaves offered to the Lord. And he engages tongue in tasting Krishna Prasada. He engages legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord, his head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. As Grahasthas, I know it is not possible, and we are not there yet, but with our perseverance, Krishna's and devotees' mercy, also by association with the devotees, we can advance in Krishna consciousness and go back home, back to Godhead. In summary, the message of this chapter points towards an escape from this cycle of misery. To be freed from material suffering, the living entity must withdraw from the pursuit of sense gratification. We are not the body, we are the soul. Our eternal position is Jivera Swarupena Krishnena Nityadas. By shifting the focus from satisfying our own senses to serving the Supreme Lord, we can diminish the problems of material existence and advance in Krishna consciousness. I would like to conclude here. Vancha kalpadarupyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha